Life was peaceful on New Eden, a lush colony planet where humans had made their home among towering forests and sparkling rivers. The colony was a tapestry of bustling marketplaces, quiet parks, and homes filled with laughter. People from Earth had come here seeking a fresh start, and they found it on this vibrant world, living alongside colorful local flora and fauna. Captain Elena Miles loved her morning walks through the central square, watching children chase each other and vendors sell exotic fruits. As a leader of the colony's security, these moments of peace were precious to her. But today was different. Today, the sky would fall, and peace would shatter. It started as a faint whir in the distance, barely audible over the hum of daily life. Elena, trained to notice any out-of-place sound, paused. Her eyes scanned the horizon. The sound grew louder, a low buzz that became a roar. Within seconds, the blue sky was obscured by dark shapes descending rapidly toward the colony. Panic erupted as the strange ships, sleek and menacing, fired beams of intense light down onto the buildings. Glass shattered, structures crumbled, and screams filled the air. Elena sprang into action, her training taking over. She shouted orders, directing the colony's small security force to evacuate civilians to underground shelters. "Move! Get to the shelters," she yelled, her voice firm and clear. The security team, though small, was efficient, herding groups of frightened people away from the chaos. Elena helped a young mother carrying 2 children, guiding them to the nearest shelter entrance. As the last of the civilians disappeared into the safety of the underground, Elena turned her attention to the attackers. She grabbed her communicator. "All units, form defensive lines. We need to hold them back until reinforcements arrive." Her voice was calm but carried an urgency that spurred her team into action. The attackers landed, and out of their ships came creatures like nothing Elena had ever seen. They were tall, with scales that shimmered under the sun and eyes that glowed with a malevolent light. They moved with terrifying speed, their weapons, a mix of technology and biology, spitting fire and destruction. Elena and her team fought bravely, using their knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. They ducked behind ruins and returned fire, trying to keep the attackers at bay. Every shot from Elena's rifle was aimed with precision, each hit taking down an enemy, but there were too many of them. As the battle raged, something remarkable happened. The colony's engineers, led by a young tech genius named Rahul, hacked together a makeshift EMP device using spare parts from the workshop. They targeted the enemy ships, hoping to disable them, and stop the onslaught. With a deep breath, Rahul activated the device. A pulse of electromagnetic energy surged through the air, and for a moment, everything electronic within half a mile flickered and died. The enemy ships, caught in the blast, shuddered and went dark. Cheering broke out among the humans as the tide of battle turned. With their ships disabled, the attackers became disoriented, their advance stalling. Elena seized the moment, rallying her team. "Push them back. Now's our chance." The humans surged forward, a wave of determined resistance. They drove the attackers back towards their inert ships. With a combination of courage and desperation, they reclaimed their colony, inch by inch. After hours of fierce fighting, the attackers retreated, their ships slowly reactivating and lifting off into the sky. Elena watched them go, her body aching and her heart pounding. New Eden was damaged, but its spirit was unbroken. As the dust settled, the colonists emerged from their shelters, their faces marked by fear, but also by resilience. They surrounded Elena and her team, clapping and cheering. She smiled wearily, accepting their gratitude, but her mind was already racing ahead. Who were these attackers? Why had they come? And most importantly, would they return? Elena knew that the attack was not just a random act of violence. It was a message, and she was determined to find out what it meant. As she helped her people begin the long process of rebuilding, she made a vow. She would not rest until she had ensured the safety of her new home. For now, New Eden had survived, but the mystery of who had attacked them, And why lingered in the air, a question that begged for an answer. The big meeting. The morning after the attack, New Eden seemed quieter than usual. The sounds of birds and the rustle of trees were there, but the usual laughter and chatter of the people were missing. Instead, there was a heavy silence as the colonists dealt with the shock and began repairs on their damaged homes. Captain Alina Miles stood before her mirror, adjusting her uniform. The fabric was clean, but carried the faint scent of smoke and the weight of yesterday's battle. She was preparing for a crucial task, a meeting with the Galactic Council, where she would represent New Eden and demand answers. Alina arrived at the Council's Grand Hall, a vast space with towering ceilings and walls lined with the flags of countless civilizations. The hall was buzzing with representatives from various planets, each conversing in hushed tones about the recent attack. As Alina made her way to the front, she felt hundreds of eyes on her. She was the captain from a young colony, now thrust into the galactic spotlight because of tragedy. Taking a deep breath, she reminded herself that she wasn't just fighting for revenge, but for the future safety of her people. The meeting began with the council's president, a dignified figure with deep green skin and wise eyes, calling the room to order. "We are gathered here today under unfortunate circumstances," he began. "The unprovoked attack on New Eden is a grave concern to us all." Alina was given the floor. Standing tall, she addressed the assembly. "Honorable members of the Galactic Council," she started, her voice steady. "Yesterday, my people suffered a terrible attack. We lost homes, friends, and the peace that we valued above all. We need to know who is responsible and ensure it never happens again." Murmurs filled the hall as Alina continued. "The attackers used advanced weaponry that shouldn't exist outside this council. This breach of trust must be addressed today." A representative from the Thalorians, a race known for their technological prowess, stood up. His voice was smooth, but his eyes were hard. "Captain Miles, while we empathize with your loss, jumping to conclusions without evidence is dangerous. We must not let emotions cloud our judgment." Alina met his gaze. "I understand your concern, but I stand here not just based on emotion, but on evidence collected from the wreckage." She presented images of the weapons recovered, showing unmistakable similarities to Thalorian technology. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. The Thalorian representative's face tightened. "This is a serious accusation, Captain. Do you suggest that we, a founding member of this council, would attack a peaceful colony?" "Not directly," Alina replied carefully, "but perhaps elements within your world could be operating without your knowledge. We request an investigation." Support for an investigation came from unexpected corners of the room, from races that valued justice or had their suspicions about the Thalorians. The council president nodded gravely. "An investigation will be initiated immediately. The peace and security of our galaxy depend on it." As the council agreed on the details of the investigation, Alina felt a mix of relief and tension. She had taken the first step toward uncovering the truth, but knew the path ahead would be fraught with political maneuvering and potential dangers. After the meeting, as delegates clustered in groups discussing the shocking developments, Alina was approached by an old friend, Marcus, a human ambassador stationed on another planet. "Great job in there, Alina," he said with a warm smile. "You've set a big wheel in motion." "I had to, Marcus," Alina responded, her eyes scanning the room. "Whoever did this is not stopping with New Eden. We might have bought some time, but the real work starts now." Marcus nodded. "You're in the big game now, Alina. Be careful. Council politics can be as dangerous as any battlefield." As the hall cleared, Alina's thoughts were on New Eden. She had made a promise to protect her people, and today was just the beginning. As she walked back to her ship, her mind was busy forming plans. She needed to strengthen New Eden's defenses and prepare for any outcome of the investigation. In the silence of her ship, heading back to her colony, Alina felt the weight of her new responsibility. It was not just about rebuilding what was lost, but safeguarding the future. The attack had changed everything, and she was now playing a crucial role on a much larger stage. Alina knew the road ahead would be challenging, but as New Eden's star appeared on the horizon, glowing against the dark void, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. No matter what it took, she would stand firm for her home, ensuring that New Eden's voice was heard and respected in the vast expanse of the galaxy. Secret Mission. 2 weeks had passed since the Galactic Council meeting. The investigation into the attack on New Eden had started slowly, tangled in bureaucratic delays and political hesitations. Captain Alina Miles grew increasingly impatient. Every day without progress was a day that her people remained vulnerable. She decided it was time to take matters into her own hands. Late one evening, under the cover of darkness, Alina and a hand-picked team of her best operatives boarded a small, unmarked spacecraft. Their destination was the Rylos system, a remote sector where the Thalorians were rumored to have secret military bases. If there were any truth to the accusations against them, Alina was determined to find concrete evidence. The journey was tense, with each member of the team aware of the risks involved. Infiltrating a Thalorian base could spark an interstellar incident or worse, lead to their capture. Alina spent the time reviewing the plans, ensuring everyone knew their role. The mood was serious, but there was an unspoken bond of trust and determination among them. They arrived in the Rylos system without detection, thanks to the stealth technology of their ship. The planet they approached was barren, a stark landscape of dark rocks and deeper shadows. It was the perfect place to hide a secret, and as they landed a few kilometers from the suspected base, the gravity of their mission settled in. Using night vision equipment, the team moved silently across the rocky terrain. The base, built into the side of a mountain, was heavily guarded. Alina and her team observed the patrols, timing their movements. They waited for the shift change, the moment when the guards would be most distracted. With precision, they slipped past the outer defenses, using a coded device one of their tech specialists had prepared to bypass the security system. Inside, they found themselves in a maze of corridors. Every corner turned could bring them face to face with a guard. Their hearts raced, but they moved with purpose, guided by a map stolen from a council database. Alina led them to a central control room, where they hoped to access the base's data archives. The tech specialists set to work, cracking the complex codes that protected Thalorian secrets. Time seemed to slow as they waited, each second stretching out as the possibility of discovery loomed over them. Suddenly, the screen lit up with access granted. They quickly downloaded files, blueprints, communications, project reports, anything that might prove the Thalorians' involvement in the attack. As the data transferred, Alina watched the door, her weapon ready. Just as the download completed, alarms blared throughout the base. They had been detected. "Move out," Alina commanded, her voice calm but urgent. The team retraced their steps, moving faster now, the silence replaced by the sound of their own breaths and the distant shouts of alerted guards. They reached the exit just as the base erupted into chaos, with Thalorian soldiers converging from multiple directions. The team ran across the open ground, lasers zipping past them, striking the rocky earth. They dove into the ship, the pilot firing the engines even before the hatch had fully closed. As they lifted off, enemy fire pelted the hull. Alina held her breath, watching the surface of the planet fall away beneath them. They had done it. They had the evidence they needed, but now they had to make it back to present it. The journey back was fraught with tension. Alina knew that the Thalorians would be in full pursuit, unwilling to let them escape easily with stolen data. She contacted the Galactic Council en route, arranging an emergency meeting. There was no going back now. The truth would come out, and the galaxy would have to face it. As their ship broke through the atmosphere of the Council's space station, Alina felt a mix of triumph and apprehension. They were welcomed by a squadron of Council ships, protection against any further Thalorian aggression. With the data safely delivered to the Council, Alina stood before the assembly once more. This time, she held proof of the Thalorians' covert activities and their potential involvement in the attack on New Eden. The evidence was irrefutable, displayed for all to see. The reaction was immediate and intense. Some expressed shock, others anger, but all were forced to acknowledge the betrayal. The Thalorian delegates protested, claiming the evidence was fabricated, but the details were too precise, too damning. Calls for severe sanctions against the Thalorians grew louder as the council processed the revelations. Alina watched the proceedings with a weary but resolute gaze. She had risked everything for this moment, for her people, and for the truth. As the meeting adjourned, with promises of decisive action, Alina felt a weight lift slightly from her shoulders. She had ignited a spark that would hopefully burn away deceit and bring about a safer galaxy. But as she left the hall, surrounded by her loyal team, she knew their work was far from over. The path to peace was long and fraught with challenges, but they were ready to face them together. Unveiling the truth. The Galactic Council chamber was filled with tension as Captain Alina Miles prepared to reveal the truth she had uncovered. The large room, usually echoing with the voices of diplomacy and debate, was unusually silent, the air thick with anticipation. Alina stood at the center of the chamber, a data chip in her hand containing the evidence from the Thalorian base. The representatives of various alien races watched her, their expressions a mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and in some cases, fear. The president of the council, a wise and aged figure with a long flowing robe, gave Alina a nod to begin. She stepped forward, her uniform crisp, her posture resolute. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, what I am about to share with you is proof not just of a betrayal of New Eden, but of the trust upon which this council is built. Alina began. Her voice, clear and steady, filled the chamber. She inserted the data chip into the viewer, and images flickered onto the screen behind her. Documents, communications, and videos outlined a secret plan by a faction within the Thalorian race. The evidence was undeniable, showing their involvement in the design and delivery of the weapons used in the attack on New Eden. Gasps and murmurs spread through the chamber as the images scrolled. Some council members shook their heads in disbelief, while others whispered among themselves, their faces clouded with concern. Alina continued, "These documents not only show the planning of the attack, but also indicate that it was a test of their new weapons, with the ultimate goal of increasing their influence within the council through fear and manipulation." A representative from the Thalorian delegation stood up, his scales shimmering with agitation. "These accusations are outrageous. The evidence is fabricated, a mere plot to tarnish the reputation of the Thalorian people." Alina faced him, unyielding. "Is it, though? We found these in a base that officially does not exist, filled with technology that should not exist if not for the approval of this council. How do you explain that, Ambassador?" The Thalorian faltered, his eyes darting away before regaining his composure. "We will need to investigate this internally. There must be a misunderstanding." The council president intervened, his voice firm. "An internal investigation by the Thalorians is not enough. Given the gravity of these findings, we need a full council-led inquiry." Support for the president's proposal was overwhelming. One by one, representatives from different worlds voiced their agreement, insisting on transparency and accountability. Alina stepped back as the council arranged for the inquiry, her part momentarily done. She felt a mix of relief and exhaustion, knowing that this was just the beginning of a larger battle for justice. Outside the chamber, Alina was met by her team, who had been waiting anxiously. They gathered around her, their faces a mix of pride and concern. "You did it, Captain," said her second-in-command, a sturdy human named Marco. "You really did it." "We did it together," Alina corrected him with a tired smile. "But the road ahead is long. This inquiry will stir up tensions, and we need to be ready for any fallout." Over the next few days, as the council's inquiry commenced, the evidence Alina had provided was scrutinized and debated. Some members of the Thalorian race publicly distanced themselves from the faction implicated in the attack, calling for peace and cooperation. Meanwhile, back on New Eden, news of Elena's actions spread. The colony, still rebuilding from the attack, found a new sense of hope. People began to talk about their future, not with fear, but with determination to protect their world and participate more actively in galactic affairs. Back at the council, the inquiry concluded with a damning report confirming the involvement of the Thalorian faction. Sanctions were imposed, and reforms were proposed to prevent such an incident from occurring again. Elena was invited once more to the council chamber to hear the final verdict. As she listened to the president outline the steps that would be taken, she felt a cautious optimism. After the session, as representatives from various planets approached her to express their gratitude and respect, Elena realized the weight of what they had achieved. She had started a movement toward greater accountability within the council, a safeguard for the smaller worlds like New Eden. That evening, as she looked out at the stars from the observation deck of the council's space station, Elena felt a deep connection to the vast, intricate tapestry of the galaxy. The challenges ahead were numerous, but she knew she and her people were no longer alone in facing them. The fight for truth had been hard, but it was just one chapter in the ongoing story of New Eden and its place in the galaxy. Elena was ready for whatever came next, fortified by the strength of her convictions and the support of her newfound allies across the stars. New friends. The Galactic Council's space station buzzed with activity, its corridors filled with delegates from various planets, all moving with a sense of purpose. News of the sanctions against the Thalorian faction had spread quickly, changing the political landscape of the galaxy. Captain Elena Miles walked through these corridors, no longer just a representative of a distant human colony, but a recognized figure of justice and resilience. As Elena prepared for her final speech to the council, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The attack on New Eden had been a dark moment, but it had ignited a flame of unity and cooperation that now burned brightly across star systems. In the grand hall of the council, representatives gathered to hear Elena's address. The hall was filled with a mix of species, some with shimmering scales, others with feathered wings, and some who glowed softly in the dim light. They all turned their attention to Elena as she stepped up to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen of the Galactic Council, Elena began, her voice echoing through the chamber. We stand at a crossroads. The recent events have shown us the dangers of secrecy and the power of unity. We have a chance to forge a new path, one that leads to peace and prosperity for all. She paused, looking around at the faces watching her. New Eden is grateful for the support of this council. With your help, we have exposed a threat not just to our world, but to the entire galaxy. Now we must work together to ensure that no one else must suffer as we did. Elena's words resonated in the hall, her call for unity striking a chord with many who had long hoped for a more cooperative galaxy. Let us build new bridges, she continued. Let us share our knowledge, our resources, and our strengths. Together, we can protect each other from threats, both internal and external. As she spoke, nods of agreement spread through the crowd. Elena proposed the creation of an interstellar alliance for peace, a network of worlds committed to defending each other and sharing intelligence. When her speech ended, the applause was loud and sustained. Delegates approached her, eager to speak with her, to thank her, or to express their interest in her proposal. Among them was a delegate from Zalara, a planet known for its advanced technology. Captain Miles, your speech was inspiring, said the Zalaran delegate, his eyes bright with sincerity. Zalara would be honored to join your alliance. We can offer technological support and strategic advice. Elena smiled, grateful. Thank you. Your expertise would be invaluable. Let's discuss how we can integrate our resources for the benefit of the alliance. As the day progressed, more representatives expressed their desire to join the alliance. Elena met with each of them, discussing potential contributions and roles. It was the beginning of something new, something hopeful. Back on New Eden, news of the forming alliance brought a fresh wave of optimism. The colony was still rebuilding, but now there was a sense of being part of a larger community, a galaxy that cared and responded. In the weeks that followed, Alina worked tirelessly, traveling from planet to planet to formalize the alliance. She met with leaders, negotiated terms, and laid the foundations for a system of mutual protection and aid. On a visit to the planet Meridian, known for its lush landscapes and deep cultural history, Alina attended a ceremony to celebrate their joining of the alliance. The Meridian president spoke warmly of new beginnings and the promise of shared futures. "Today, we are not just forming an alliance," he said, standing beside Alina in front of a crowd of thousands. "We are becoming a family. And like a family, we will look out for each other, support each other, and grow together." Alina felt moved by his words, by the enthusiasm of the crowd, and by the tangible sense of community. This was what she had fought for, a galaxy where no world stood alone, where strength was measured not in weapons, but in bonds of cooperation. As the ceremony concluded, children from Meridian presented Alina with a garland of flowers, a traditional symbol of friendship. She accepted it with a promise: "Together, we will build a galaxy where peace is the norm, not the exception." Returning to New Eden, Alina watched from her ship as the colony came into view. The scars of the attack were still there, but so were signs of rebuilding and rejuvenation. New structures rose alongside repaired ones, and the streets were busy with people determined to move forward. As her ship landed, a crowd gathered to welcome her back. They cheered for her, for the hope she had brought back from the stars. Alina stepped out, feeling the weight of her new role, not just as a captain, but as a leader in a united galaxy. That evening, as she looked up at the stars from the balcony of her home, Alina felt a profound connection to the vast, endless universe. New Eden was a small part of it, but it was now firmly woven into the fabric of the galactic community. The future was uncertain, with challenges no doubt on the horizon. But with new friends and a new alliance, Alina was confident that humanity would meet those challenges head-on, together with their new allies. The stars seemed brighter that night, each one a beacon of possibility, as the galaxy moved forward into a new era of unity and peace.